Okay, welcome to our little class today. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to be potting up some of these aloe vera plants. I took these aloe vera plants off of a big aloe vera plant about a year ago, and I put them in these little pots, and they've just been sitting in my window, and I probably only watered them about 5 times. And so they go a couple of months without water, and they get completely dried out. And right now, these have not been watered forever. And these roots in here are totally dry. Well, there's a little moisture there. But aloe vera plants can get completely dry and still survive. So if you forget to water your plants and you want a house plant, an aloe vera plant's a good way to go. But so at this point I want to grow these into a big beautiful plant. So I'm going to just show you how I'm going to pot these up today. And I'm doing it kind of a complicated way because I want to use worm castings. So I have my bucket of worm castings here. And if there's any big giant worms in here, I don't really want them to go in the pot. I don't mind if small worms go in. So I'm just going to sift this a little bit. And I'm looking down here, and if I see a worm come through, then I'll pick him up. But the thing is, this is a small enough mesh that any adult worms, I think they're going to stay up here on the top. See, here's a pretty good sized worm. I'm going to set him over in my compost. Break up some of these. There was a worm inside of that one, so I'm going to put him over here. Now, it's okay to have worms in your flower pots, in your houseplant pots. Anywhere you have soil, earthworms are a fine thing to have. So the reason I'm taking these out is simply I wanted more worms in here and in my compost. So that's why I'm doing this. There looks like a pretty big worm right there. Not a giant worm, but he was a full-sized adult worm. Okay, here's a worm. This is a juvenile, but he's kind of big. Okay, so that's good. So I got a few worms out of there, so that was great. So once I get a bunch of that sifted out, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this little pot here. And I'm going to put the worm castings in there. And I can see some baby worms going in there. And there's also going to be worm, the little egg capsules will be in there also. So there's that. Putting the plant right in there. And I want to adjust my plant to where I want it to be. I want the soil level to come up a little bit on those. On the stem there. So I'm just going to take these worm castings and push them down in. So this will be a fun experiment. This is a new thing for me. I have never ever in my life grown plants in pure worm castings. Now it's not totally pure because I am leaving the root ball in there from the little black cup that it came out of right here. So all this soil that was in here, that was just a normal potting soil with peat moss and a little bit of sand that I added to it. So I'm just pressing it down. No, I'm not pressing it too hard though. I don't want to kill my worms. I could push that so hard that it would smash my worms and kill them. Okay, see this little plant here? It kind of broke off right there. But this might sprout roots, so I'm going to stick it back in there. If it doesn't sprout roots, that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. It'll just dry up and die, and that's fine. But I like aloe vera. I think it's good for the skin. I like to put some on my skin, and then you take some water right here, and we just water that. This is my laboratory water here. I'm right by my microscope. So we're just gonna get some water in there, and that's it for today. And I'll watch this. It probably needs more water than that, but I'll water it over the next few days. But that's done. Okay, in case you missed anything, I'm going to do the same thing again. Move my pot out of the way. Get my sifter, grab some earthworm castings from the 5-gallon bucket. And I'm just going to sift that like that. There's a peeling of, looks like an onion or something. Okay. There's one worm right there. And I like to scrape it out of the way with that scraper. I do that, then I can see any worms easier if there's only one layer on this cookie sheet here. If you have a restaurant supply store in your town, which most towns do, unless you live out in the middle of nowhere like me, but you can go to a restaurant supply store and you can get a big beautiful cookie sheet like this. This cookie sheet is so big it won't fit in our normal sized oven in our kitchen, and so that makes me happy because it became one of my prized gardening tools. I use this big, look at those gorgeous worms. They're little, but they're good ones. Okay, here we go. Alright, that's almost enough dirt to fill up that pot. Need to get some more worm castings loosened from the bucket here. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. I want to look down in here. Okay, here's an earthworm egg right there. So it's going to hatch, and we'll have eggs in here. That'll be great. Look and see. Okay, I've got 2 big worms here. A third one that's middle-sized. 4, 5. There's 5 worms. Those guys came through. Here's a little one. And here's 1, 2, 3. That's good. I believe that is enough to fill up this pot. So let's look at these ones here. Has some dead leaves on it right here. You can just take those dead leaves off. I'll just put those in the pot because as they decompose it will feed microbes in the soil. So I'm going to press on the bottom of the pot with that finger right there. Just press up like this. And then gently lift up on it, and everything broke off. But I do want some of the sand and the peat moss in there because that'll give me different kinds of nutrients. I'll go ahead and put that root system in there. That root system might even sprout and have new. It is alive. Yeah, so right here, there's I'm going to put it against this black edge. Maybe you can see that. I need a cameraman. But there's a little sprout right there coming out. So that'll probably grow. So I'm going to put a couple of handfuls in here. Wiggle that to settle it down. A little bit more. Okay, now I'm going to put the root system right there. That's good. And now all these guys, that guy has roots on him. That one has some roots. Big one. Big one has 1 root on it right there. And it's kind of brittle, it's breaking off. Not very good, not very healthy. But I'll bet you it'll grow. And if they don't grow, I probably have 300 of these. If I went and counted, I probably have 300 plants. So I don't need every one of them to grow. I have more than I need. If anybody needs an aloe vera plant, send me 20 bucks. I'll send you a pot like this with some plants in it. That'll cover shipping. go, just like that. And I don't have quite enough dirt. Get that settling down in there really good. Want a little bit more. So I'm going to dig down into the worm bucket here. Sift that out. There's some nice worms in here. I really like worms. Worms are my friends. Worms are so important. And now let me just smell this real quick. Absolutely no smell at all, which tells me this is properly oxygenated. Now, right here is interesting. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 baby earthworms that are big enough to see right there. So we're just gonna put this in here. Those worms will be growing in there. That'll be a good thing. Now as I push the soil in there, I don't want to push it so much that I'm smashing the worms. But what I do want is to pull the plant, keep the plant at the same level. So as I'm getting this to settle in there, I want the plants to be at the level I want them. Now what's the proper level? I know people are going to ask me what the proper level is. Well, let's pull this out and talk about it. So right here, this is the bottom of your root right here. And this is where your leaves start separating, is right in here. This old leaf, but that old leaf's about dead. This one's not too far in depth behind it. I'm going to bring the soil to about right there. Okay, and that will keep that held on. And since that's in the soil, this will probably sprout roots out here also. So I'm just going to press that back down in. Okay, that's done. I don't have time to mess around. I don't want to mess around. I'll give this some water. Here in a few days, if that water settles it down a lot, I'm just going to add some more dirt in it, and it will be just fine. I keep calling this dirt, this is the best soil known to man right here. Good old earthworm castings. And there is a big difference between soil and dirt. But, you know, as I'm talking, I call it dirt. And it's okay. Just so long as you know what I'm talking about. Okay, there we go. We potted them up. So that's 3 that I've potted, because I potted one before I started this film. And I've got one more to do. But thank you for watching this video about using worm castings in the aloe veras. And we're going to water this now. I have a jar here. Just going to give this a nice drink. Now these are little pots. These are not planters. These are pots that hold water. So there's no water can't flow through these. So if I water these too much, it's very easy for these to turn anaerobic and start growing bad organisms. So what do I do to make sure that doesn't happen? Well, don't water it too much. So how much is too much? Well, if it starts stinking, then it was way too much water. If your plant, if you're looking at an aloe vera plant, if the leaf is very thin, then it's too dry. And if it's nice and fat and thick and full of juice, then it's just right. But in a pot like this, in a dry climate like the house in the winter time, it's pretty dry climate in here. I'm going to water this about every 2 weeks and just give it a little bit of water, like a half a cup of water every couple of weeks. Alright, that's the end.